Welcome to the weekly dose of Shabbat Kodesh. From Shiva to Shabbat. No one should ever know. No one from Am Yisrael should ever know about Shiva. But it is important when we explore the ideas of Shiva versus Shabbat. It gives us an amazing insight as far as to the clarity of what Shabbat really means and what we experience on Shabbat. As anyone who, God forbid, has ever experienced sitting Shiva, we know that it's an emotionally very difficult place. And we are commanded on Shiva, during the Shiva, to mourn and to go into mourning and experience the sadness of departing from a loved one. But something amazing happens. When Shabbat comes, we are commanded that we must get up, suspend, so to speak, the Shiva. We need to change from our Shiva garments and dress in full Shabbat attire. We have to try not to cry on Shabbat because, as we are taught, en avalut b'Shabbat. There is no mourning on Shabbat. And then on Motzei Shabbat, when we do Havdalah, we are meant to literally, almost instantly, transform ourselves back into becoming a person should transform back into becoming an Avel once again. And all of the halachot of Avlut and mourning take into account once again. And you look at that from the outside world and you say, this is not a simple task. To just go back into Avlut. What is the experience supposed to teach us? What are we supposed to learn? How does that teach us about Shabbat? Mourning essentially is an inner experience of dark despair and an understanding of nothingness. Whereas on Shabbat, we are meant to experience a connectedness to the world to come and ultimate spirituality. Yet also we know that on Yom Tovim, on the major holidays, Avlut and Shiva is suspended in its entirety, whereas on Shabbat, it's just temporarily suspended. So the question's asked now, what is the difference between Shabbat and Yom Tovim? So here we learn something absolutely phenomenal. On Shabbat, the difference between Shabbat and Yom Tovim is such. On Shabbat, we actually are taught, the Chazal teaches that on Shabbat, we actually essentially leave this world entirely. Me'ein Holam Haba means that we are experiencing what it means somewhat to exist outside of this world. We are dipped in to the experience of Me'ein Holam Haba, the next world. Being that we're actually existing on Shabbat in another world, completely taken out of this world, that in itself means that we are not supposed to experience anything that pertains to this world, to the regular physical coarseness of this world. Materialistic existence ceases to exist for us on Shabbat. Whereas on Yom Tovim, we aren't brought out into that experience. And on Yom Tovim, we're actually commanded to experience what it means to be in a state of joy. So on Yom Tovim, we're in an experience of joy in this world. And on Shabbat, we're out of this world completely. And that is why on Shabbat, Shiva ceases to exist, because we are out of this world, which means mourning doesn't exist in the Olam Haba. Whereas when we're commanded in this world to practice and experience and indulge in joy, we cannot exist on those two emotional planes at the same time. We cannot also exist in profound joy and in mourning at the same time. So joy overtakes the mourning, and therefore on Yom Tov, Shiva ceases and suspends it totally, the experience of Shiva. Here we understand the profound lesson that essentially Shabbat, we are pulled out of this world. We are totally not living in this world at all. Whereas on Yom Tovim we are, but we infuse it with joy. That teaches us an amazing idea of Shabbat Kodesh. Shabbat, we are not here. On Shabbat, we are essentially not existing in this materialistic world. And we know that through this experience and teaching of what it does when that person has to go through that Shiva experience. So let's take that lesson and really infuse our Shabbat with the mindset that we are essentially here but not here. And let's make this Shabbat Kodesh a different experience of Me'ein Holam Haba. Have a wonderful Shabbos.